Hey, greetings everyone. It is GleeCon, and I am back once again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. I am happy to be here with you, and thank you for tuning in. On our last episode, we continued with the second part of running through Thousand Needles' Horde characters. This time we took our Restoration Shaman. It was pretty successful, killing some Grim Totem and some elementals and surviving an ambush. Well, I then went to do those same things off camera with my protection warrior, and I'm sure I will wax at length about it on our next episode. But suffice to say, being a solo protection warrior is just a pain in the tuchus. It is not fun to quest at all. Some things make it extremely difficult. But we'll catch up with that the next time I did manage to chug through and get done the same quests. We just started off the War of the Scaleborn novel, a new novel, but one that takes place in the ancient prehistoric times. So on this first chapter, we saw Vyranoth, who, if you've been playing Dragonflight, she is one of the primals. She's the frosty one, and the one that's most amenable to the dragons and to peace. And we saw her seeing Valdrakken, the ancient Valdrakken, for the first time, and brought up that the main tension is between order magic, which is what the dragons symbolize, and the primal magic, the chaotic forces, the elemental forces that the primals represent, and how there's some wariness on Vyranoth's part because she doesn't trust the keepers and what they represent, and how the dragons have been changing because of their imbuement with that magic. So stay a while and listen as we kick off Chapter 2. Alexstrasza's heartstrings pulled taut, making it difficult to breathe. As Vyranoth walked away, Alexstrasza nearly cried out, "Can you not stay and listen just for a moment more?" The Lifebinder held her tongue. She would not beg, especially when Vyranoth refused to see reason. Of all the dragons in Azeroth, Alexstrasza thought Vyranoth would understand why the Aspects chose order over their primal natures. She and Vyranoth had ever been of one heart, one mind. Order magic made it easier to protect innocent lives, a goal that Alexstrasza and Vyranoth shared. How many dragon clutches had she helped Vyranoth save from Galakron's hunger? Had she not fought with wing and talon in defense of Vyranoth's own brood, in defense of Vyranoth herself? Vyranoth had always been headstrong. The same stubbornness that made her slow to accept change also made her a keen survivalist. Still, she had nothing to fear from order magic. Had she but stayed in Valdrakken, Alexstrasza could have shown her the wonders of its transformative powers, how these could be wielded as tools to achieve their shared desires. Instead, Vyranoth chose to close herself to Alexstrasza, to the Aspects, and to the future of dragonkind. However, the Lifebinder knew Vyranoth better than any other. Though her heart moved like a glacier, it would melt in time. When Vyranoth disappeared, Alexstrasza sighed and turned back to her duties. She could not spend long wallowing in self-pity. The other four Aspects awaited her in the seat's towering eyrie. The seat of the Aspects was one of Alexstrasza's favorite places in Valdrakken. She teleported to the top in a flash of light. The tower soared high over the city, affording her an all-encompassing view of the Broodlands. On a clear day, she could see everything from the volcanic ridges of the Waking Shores to the rolling hills of the Emerald Plains. When the winds blew from the south, Alexstrasza could even smell the woody earthen scents of the ancient redwood trees in the azure span. Today, dragons filled the skies over the city, celebrating the Red Flight's newly instated Oathstone. They dipped, danced, and dived through the air, basking in the magic it had bestowed upon them. Alexstrasza wished her heart could know such peace, but Vyranoth's words left her unsettled, particularly in the wake of Tyr's request. "The dragonflights must grow more quickly," Alexstrasza, Tyr had said. "Take primal dragon eggs from the wilds and infuse them with the order magic. Your flights must be prepared to defend Azeroth when the time comes." Alexstrasza had balked at the idea, especially because it hadn't been phrased as a request. Inside the upper chamber, Malygos lounged before his dragonflight's banner, tapping his blue-tinted talons on the floor and exuding an aura of boredom. Ysera sat to Alexstrasza's left, her emerald tail tucked around her toes. Alexstrasza's sister regarded her with kindness and perhaps a little sympathy. They had all seen Vyranoth's departure, no doubt. Neltharion stood to Alexstrasza's right, his face unreadable, his eyes closed. Thinking, as always. Nosdormu turned his head as Alexstrasza strode back into the seat. Bronze sands danced around his wings, ever moving. Each aspect stood before a banner representing their flight, and all were flanked by their various majordomos and guards. "So," Neltharion said as Alexstrasza took her place before the red banner, "I take it Vionath did not appreciate today's ceremony." I hope we get the story of what he did with the Drakthir in this book too. "She did not," Alexstrasza said, "but we have more pressing concerns at present. I would like to discuss Tyr's latest admonition with this council. Majordomos, guards, leave us. I wish to speak to my fellow aspects alone." The majordomos bowed their heads to the lifebinder and exited the seat, taking to the air and cruising around the tower out of earshot. One by one, the Draconin filed out back to the lower chamber. When they were alone, Alexstrasza returned to her business. "Tyr has asked us to take primal dragon eggs from the wilds and infuse them with order magic, thus expanding our flights at a faster rate. I will not lie, the request—" "You mean the command," Malygos said, interjecting. The blue aspect rolled a bit of arcane fire through his talons, looking to the lifebinder. "He did not give us a choice." "We always have a choice," Alexstrasza said. "We may choose to follow his admonition, or to risk his displeasure and refuse. What say you all?" Neltharion cocked his head, the light sliding over his oil-dark scales. "You have ever been adamant that order magic should be an individual's choice, Alexstrasza. Why would you consider infusing eggs without their bloodline's permission, or their own?" Alexstrasza sensed no malice from the black aspect, nor defiance. Neltharion was always the first to question Alexstrasza. He liked to prompt discussion and examine issues from multiple angles. On occasion he could be rather tactless about it, but his questions generated the desired results. "You speak true, Neltharion, but we know little of the threats to our world, nor of the dark forces that the Titans themselves shield us from knowing," Alexstrasza replied. "We have been entrusted with safeguarding the lives of all dragonkind, of all Azeroth. If infusing more eggs will improve our chances against future threats, perhaps we should consider it." "You do not seem convinced, my queen." Malygos swirled his talons in the air, and the arcane flames twirled from his talons like ribbons. "Though I agree with Tyr. If we want the dragonflights to survive, it may be in our best interest to bolster our numbers." "The flights are thriving, are they not?" Alexstrasza said. "Yes, for now." The blue aspect looked up, dousing the fire with a snap of his talons. He rose to his feet. "But opposition rises on swift wings. Your own cousin speaks against you." "Fyrak," Alexstrasza replied with a scoff. "Fyrak may be a firebrand, but he is no leader. Were he to incite a rebellion against us, he would spend as much time fighting his own allies as he would engaging our flights." "Fyrak is a warmonger and a zealot, and I do not think it wise to underestimate him," Neltharion said. "I didn't realize Fyrak was her cousin." "You do not know him as I do." Alexstrasza paused, considering her next words. Fyrak loved one thing and one thing alone: fighting. He was an unmatched combatant in the air and on the ground, and he had taught Alexstrasza how to hunt and do battle. In recent centuries, however, the thrill of the fight had consumed Fyrak, which was no doubt why he called for rebellion against order magic. "Yet I see the wisdom in your words," she continued. "Fyrak was like a brother to me, but his actions have set him apart. He is different now. Changed." Malygos inclined his head. "In more ways than one, it seems. Have you heard the rumors? It is said that Fyrak has been imbued with elemental energies. How he did this, none can be sure. Were they granted by a stronger ally, drawn from the elemental plane? He claims his power rivals that of the aspects. Primal dragons flock to his side." "My scouts have said as much," Alexstrasza said. "They tell me Fyrak has grown in size and strength, that living flames now dance across his scales. Still, I do not fear my cousin. He would decimate his own forces over a perceived insult. He may draw primal dragons to his cause with fiery words and impassioned spirit, but his reckless ways and impulsive nature will fail to keep them." "While that may be true, I do not want to ignore the threat he poses," Malygos said. If we discount Fyrak and his rabble-rousing, he may do irreparable harm to our flights. What would happen if he were to convince other primal dragons to draw on the elements as he has done? We have no authority over Fyrak, Alexstrasza said. What would you have me do? Slay him, my own kin? That is not a course I am willing to entertain. Malygos opened his mouth to respond, but Neltharion interrupted the blue aspect with a deep quaking rumble in his chest. It is not Fyrak who concerns me, the Earth Warder said, his voice no more than a murmur, but Iridikron. The name Iridikron fell like a stone weight into the room, sending vibrations through the floor. Alexstrasza sensed the other aspect's shock. Even Nosdormu, who looked as composed and stoic as ever, shuddered at the thought. Ysera whipped her tail, agitated. Malygos blinked, his shimmering runes flickering for a moment. Reclusive and withdrawn, Alexstrasza had never even seen Iridikron. The stone-scaled tend to keep to his den in Harrow's Deep, far to the north in Kalimdor, but she knew he was nearly Neltharion's equal in strategy, cunning, and strength. Neltharion and Iridikron had long been rivals. Iridikron's tactical skill and considerable resources, along with Fyrak's impetuosity, would indeed be a concern. Malygos frowned, turning to Neltharion. You did not tell me Fyrak was pursuing Iridikron's support. No, I had word only this morning, Neltharion replied. If Iridikron allies with Fyrak, they will stir the winds of war. I cannot believe they would take things so far, Alexstrasza replied, shaking her head. Dragon should not fight dragon. Our detractors do not see us as dragons, but as the Keeper's conscripts, Neltharion replied. They would raze Valdrakken to the ground given the opportunity. I agree with Tyr. We should bolster our numbers. Every egg we claim from the wilds now is one less enemy we face in the future and one more ally by our side. This is madness, Alexstrasza said, but she could sense the depth of the Earth Warder's concern. Do you support this plan, Malygos? The blue aspect hesitated. Support is a strong word, my queen, but Neltharion's reasoning is sound. If Iridikron the Stone-Scaled decides to join with Fyrak and marshal the primal dragons, we will struggle to defend the Broodlands with our current numbers. Alexstrasza shook her head. I refuse to believe that dragonkind will be led to the brink of war over a difference of opinion. Is it a difference of opinion, Neltharion asked, or a fight for our respective ways of life? For our bloodlines? Not everyone has chosen to join in this endeavor, and more than a few have sworn to stand against us. Their ranks will swell just as ours will continue to do. Alexstrasza released a soul-deep sigh. She trusted Neltharion's dedication to the cause more than that of any other save perhaps Ysera. His flight had been charged with the protection of the Broodlands, so it came as no surprise that he would be agreeable to Tyr's admonition. Malygos too, for he and Neltharion were often of like minds. Is it prudent to prepare for all eventualities? It is, Malygos said. Would you not agree, Nosdormu? The blonde aspect harumphed, giving both his wings a precise shake and sending bronze sands scattering across the floor. I would not agree. This course of action may provoke the very conflict you wish to avoid. Which means, Neltharion asked, lifting a brow. 'Tis impossible to say with any certainty, Nosdormu replied. I see 1,000 futures before our flights, but I could not tell you which way the sands of time will flow. Taking primal dragon eggs from the wilds may be a boon to our flights. It may also be the choice that ends them. The High Father's gift has made you frustratingly cryptic, my friend, Malygos said, but he smirked at the bronze aspect. Nosdormu gave him an elegant shrug in reply. And what of you, sister? Alexstrasza said, turning to Ysera. You have been unusually quiet throughout this council. Ysera, knowing the full extent of Alexstrasza's gifts, exuded love and compassion for her sister and for all dragonkind. Empathy, too, given the weight of the decision they faced. Ysera tilted her head, considering Alexstrasza for a long moment. I stand with Nosdormu on this matter, she said. All things must grow in their own way and in their own time. I cannot condone the disruption of life's natural cycle, even if order magic allows for a greater expression of its flow. Then it seems we are at an impasse, Alexstrasza said, feeling the full burden of her mantle. She had expected the role of Dragon Queen to be difficult, but she had not expected to have her deeply cherished principles at odds with the needs of the dragonflights. How could she make such a decision? How could she, a mother herself, take precious eggs only to infuse them with order magic? It was unconscionable, even if the eggs were abandoned and without protection in the wilds, for that was the condition to which she had agreed with Tyr. And yet Neltharion and Malygos were right. Tyr had given them no choice. What would happen if the aspects defied the will of the keepers? Would they be deprived of the blessings that had transformed their lives, forced to return to the unenlightened existences they had lived before? Or would their lights be snuffed out entirely, gnats before the might of gods? Alexstrasza looked out at the dragons who filled the skies above Valdrakken. Their joy was so perfect, so pure. The heart of each burned like a star, so it seemed to her, as though galaxies circled around the seat in hues of red, green, bronze, black, and blue. She was Dragon Queen, yes, but who was she to risk the health and happiness of the dragons who had chosen to follow her toward a new horizon? How could she place her own morality above their well-being? The individual could not come before the collective, not even when that individual was queen. No, Alexstrasza would not risk turning the keepers against them, especially with Fyrak raising a rebellion against the Broodlands. Were that terrible future to come to pass, the aspects would need every ally they could call upon. I see great wisdom on both sides of the matter, Alexstrasza said, turning her attention back to the other aspects. While I personally may object to collecting primal dragon eggs from the wilds, we cannot risk losing the support of Tyr and the other keepers. Were we to deviate too far from their guidance, we cannot know if they would provoke our ordering. Neltharion curled his lip at the idea, but said nothing. Furthermore, Alexstrasza said, looking to her sister, you and I both know the survival rate of primal dragons' eggs in the wilds is abysmally low. Only 1 in 4 whelplings might make it to drakehood there. Half the survivors might see 500 years or even 1,000. We must think of the lives we will save. Those eggs will be better protected in the Broodlands. More whelplings will make it to adulthood under the care of the red dragonflight, and our augmented numbers will better defend the world we all love so well. Alexstrasza paused. No one spoke. Therefore, Alexstrasza said, still unsure if the words she spoke were the right ones, and pushing the promise she had made to Vyranoth to the back of her mind, I sanction the Titan Forge to collect primal dragon eggs they find unguarded in the wilds. Neltharion and Malygos shared a satisfied look, while Nosdormu simply dipped his head in agreement. Ysera leaned closer to her sister, bumping Alexstrasza's shoulder with her snout. But no matter how hard Alexstrasza tried to justify the decision to herself, a shadow moved over her heart. Alexstrasza spent the rest of her day meeting with various members of her flight, inspecting progress at the Ruby Life pools, and instructing a larger force of Red Draconid to care for the incoming eggs. Wherever she went, Neltharion's words haunted her. Our detractors do not see us as dragons, but as the Keeper's conscripts. They would raise Valdrakken to the ground, given the opportunity. Vyranoth's words rose in an answering cry. Swear to me that you will never force a primal dragon to bow to the will of the Keepers. Alexstrasza had sworn. How she regretted those words now. If Vyranoth refused to understand something as simple as order magic, she would never empathize with the nuances of Alexstrasza's position. Not because Vyranoth did not have the capacity to understand, but because her solution would be to forsake order magic and return dragonkind to its more primal state. If only the answer could be so simple as Vyranoth thought it to be. As the sun sank toward the horizon, Alexstrasza took her leave from Valdrakken. She dived from the heights of the Seat of the Aspects, reveling in the thrill of a free fall. As the ground rushed toward her, she opened her wings and beat them once, rocketing forward. Alexstrasza loved the city. From its gleaming white towers to its glistening aqueducts, Valdrakken was fast becoming the Broodland's bustling core. Watching its spires rise brought her so much joy. The place was a marvel, a wonder, and unlike anything else on the face of Azeroth, it brought the 5 flights together in ways Alexstrasza had never imagined possible. Bronzes and blues hunted together with bronze sands and arcane magic. Reds and greens encouraged abundant flowering gardens to grow in the city's quiet, shaded places. And in the Black Dragon Flight's enclave, a new Oathstone was being prepared with the help of members of all 5 flights. Everywhere she looked, Alexstrasza saw unity, prosperity, compassion. If the 5 dragonflights could find a way to work together in harmony, they could find a path to peace, with Fyrak and his followers, too. Surely there is a way to avoid hostilities, Alexstrasza thought, sailing past the outskirts of Valdrakken. Surely we can find that path to peace. Alexstrasza flew to one of her favorite spots in the Broodlands, a small ledge on the border of the Emerald Plains and the Waking Shores, where she could watch the sunset. She lounged on the warm rock, soaking up its heat. 2 large reds circled overhead, keeping an ever-watchful eye on their queen. Below her, the sunset flooded the Waking Shores with gold light, setting the valley's pillars and arches of red stone aflame. The air smelled of sweet, dry grass, and the world teemed with life. Usually she could close her eyes and slip into the songs around her, the ancient trees shifting their boughs in the wind, or a hawk's hunting cries. But no, not tonight. Her mind turned and her heart ached, realizing that the living world would wake to a different dawn, one in which Alexstrasza's decision had either secured or destroyed its peace. She was unsurprised to sense Ysera approaching on swift wings. "I knew I would find you here," the green aspect said as she alighted on the ledge beside Alexstrasza, setting off little whirls of dust in her wake. "How do you fare, dear one?" Alexstrasza smiled sadly. "I sense concern in your heart, Ysera. Do not worry for me. I am quite all right." "Are you?" Ysera said, bumping her snout against Alexstrasza's shoulder. "I am well enough, thank you." "Well enough," Ysera said, "but still brooding. Is it that obvious?" "You would be hard-pressed to hide your heart from me," Ysera said, stretching out beside Alexstrasza. "Do not worry, sister. We made the right choice. Taking decisive action now may preserve more life than war would take. The way we lived before the Keepers was a cruel existence, with moments of wild, untamed beauty. Maybe this will encourage those who stand against us to envision a gentler future with us. Perhaps the whelps we save will even help us build bridges between us and our primal kin." "That is what I tell myself," Alexstrasza replied, "yet my doubts persist. I must admit I knew taking on the mantle of Dragon Queen would be difficult, but I never expected to make a choice like this." "Let your doubts go, sister," Ysera said, leaning into Alexstrasza's side. "Your compassion is boundless. That is why the Keepers made you queen. You are our beacon, our waypoint, the best of us. I know it is easier said than done, but you do not bear the burden of leadership alone. The aspects stand with you. I stand with you." "I know, and I thank you for it." Alexstrasza leaned back against her sister. How grateful she was for Ysera's support. The path they forged together was new, and Alexstrasza was unaccustomed to the heaviness of leadership. With time, she would adjust to the pressures of her role, but for now, all she felt was the weight of others' expectations. Tears in particular. Ysera let out a yawn, her fangs glistening in the dying light. The sisters watched the sun dip below the horizon in silence. As dusk settled over the sky, the rocks purpled. Shadows pooled at the base of the canyon. Stars emerged, then hid their faces behind clouds that crept toward the Broodlands. The wind stirred, and Alexstrasza smelled wet earth and the sharp tang of lightning on her tongue. "We should go," Alexstrasza said. "The hour grows late, and you already have one foot in the dream." "Yes," Ysera replied, her voice slow and hazy. "I suppose we should." As the moons rose, Neltharion returned to the Obsidian Citadel, or at least he returned to the site that would eventually become the Obsidian Citadel. For now, his flight excavated the mountainside, tapped volcanic vents, and shaped stones for the lower levels. One day it would be a bastion on the Broodlands' western flank, providing protection from their foes in the west. Alexstrasza was not unwise, but she underestimated Eridikron's deep-seated distrust of the Keepers and everything they touched. While Neltharion had the utmost faith in the Dragon Queen's diplomacy, even she would struggle to soften the stone-scaled's heart. If peace failed and Eridikron brought war to the Broodlands, Neltharion intended to be ready. The Earth Warder would, however, need to make his preparations with care, avoiding both Eridikron's suspicion and the Dragon Queen's ire. He summoned 2 of his most trusted Scalecrafters to his side, Umbrenion, principal architect of the Obsidian Citadel, and Calcia, leader of the Scalesmiths. Together they descended into the large natural cavern that lay beneath the citadel and stretched for hundreds of wing lengths under the broodlands. The temperature rose and the air smelled sulphurous. Lava poured from cracks in the stone, illuminating the cavern with dim red light. It ran like a red river through the cavern's center, then split in two around a red-shaped stone cliff. Misty light emanated from pockets of the cave, emanated by huge aquamarine crystals and phosphorescent fungi. Is this where the Lone Niffin are? Neltharion paused on a ledge overlooking the space. Now that the citadel is underway, Umbreon, I want your engineers to turn their attention to the lower caverns. Of course, my aspect, Umbreon replied. What would you have us do here? I want armories, workshops, and additional forges, Neltharion said, pointing to the west, north, and south. We will need training grounds for the Draconid as well. However, I want you to save Zaralak Cavern for me. Might I ask why we need to expand into the lower caverns already? Calcia inquired, stepping forward to survey the space. Is the citadel not enough to protect the Broodland's western flank, my aspect? The citadel is sufficient for now, yes, Neltharion replied, but we must prepare for an uncertain future with unknowable threats. Survey and map the cavern in advance of our next meeting with the flight leaders. We will decide how to allocate our resources to the construction efforts then. Umbreon bobbed his head. It shall be done. One final consideration, Neltharion said as he turned. This place will be for our flight alone. Tell no one of it, not even the other aspects. Am I understood? Yes, Umbreon and Calcian said in unison. Good, Neltharion replied. See to it. As Neltharion went to leave the cavern, a wordless hiss rose in the back of his mind. He paused, looking over his shoulder, but no one followed him. Umbreon and Calcia stood several wing lengths back, discussing directives and making plans. So then, who? Is everything all right, my aspect? Calcia asked, shifting her attention back to him. Neltharion gave her a firm nod. Quite, he said, though it was not the first time he had heard the strange, disembodied whispers while underground. Carry on, he said, then hurried from the cavern without another word. So this is cool. So we're seeing a few things here. We're seeing where the Obsidian Citadel comes from. We're seeing also what is the crux of the conflict here. This is a deal breaker, obviously. While you can understand the gray area for Alexstrasza, you can also 100% understand how Vironoth, this is a deal breaker. She immediately broke her promise. And it's hard to say what would actually be more damaging in the long run. I like this. This is a good central crux, whether it came from the author, but probably from the creators and writers at World of Warcraft. This crux of the conflict between the primals and the dragons is a good one, because there's no obvious good and bad side. But you also see Zaralak Caverns, and we all knew, we know from our previous books and from the lore that Neltharion eventually gets kind of infected by the old ones. This digging into Zaralak Cavern is where it begins. He's dug too deep. He's getting too close, and now he's making himself susceptible. I'm wondering if we're going to get some Lone Niffin, whatever they're called. I always get that mixed up in this book. But we have another episode in the pipe, 5x5. Thanks everybody so much for watching and for listening, and I will see you all next time on Lore of Warcraft.